channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. As we speak, West Ham have just been awarded a penalty against Brentford in that last game of the 50th round of the FA Cup. West Ham took the lead in that one through Gerard Bowen before Brentford found the equalizer just a few moments ago. And now a penalty has been awarded against Brentford. So that is what is happening tonight. But and the penalty has been converted and it's a goal. West Ham lead by 2-1 in that one. West Ham have, or either of West Ham or Brentford have already been drawn against Leeds United in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup draws there that were conducted earlier on this evening. So we'll be looking at that because it will be the gist of our conversation as we follow up on the updates from this game where Gerard Bowen has now scored a brace to restore the Hammers lead at the London Stadium, where Brentford in the Premier League have won their last two visits, or two games in their visits at the London Stadium. So it was a brilliant penalty taken by Gerard Bowen there to restore sort of the lead for the Hammers. But for those of you that are just joining us, welcome to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is my name, and I come to you live from Kampala, Uganda, where it's 5 minutes past 11 p.m. That's East African time. So it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight for our Monday night broadcast. And I hope you'll enjoy it as we go through the events in football. Of course, the UEFA Champions League does return tomorrow. We'll get to talk about that and things, you know, and things in that line, or more of that. But as we wait to get it all started, you'll allow me update our headline just to to be up to beat on what the core what the core course of discussion or topic of discussion will be for us tonight. Very interesting stuff there. Earlier on, I was watching the draws, and because I've been trying to follow the reaction, which we'll get more of from X, there from the different fans of the different clubs in as far as that draw is concerned. And I did note that Manchester City fans, some of them are not pleased with how the draw has been conducted, because Man City have, drawn Liverpool. They seem to think that Arsenal are being given an easy way out. Well, whereas I don't want to look at it that way, because there's one thing I've always said: for you to go on and win something, you need a little bit of luck, and perhaps this is Arsenal's little bit of luck in drawing perhaps who you would regard as a lesser opponent. And in any case, it's no secret that a championship team in Southampton is a lesser opponent than Liverpool, who are a Premier League team, when you draw comparisons between who Man City have gotten and who Arsenal have gotten. But then you also have to look over the other side and look who Chelsea have in Portugal. So there's also that. So you cannot look at the draws in isolation just because, but I understand where people are coming from. It's because Man City now, that further acknowledges or seeks to solidify a long-held sort of view that Arsenal are Man City's main rivals for all the competitions that Man City are still involved in. The Premier League title, the EFL Cup, where they're already at the finals, both teams, and now the FA Cup, as well as the UEFA Champions League, for which they are on two different sides of the aisle when it comes to the running of the final, unless they can both qualify for the final. And we know that Man City have won it before, and Arsenal have never won it before. So really, it does feel like that, other than the EFL Cup final between Arsenal and Man City, and that Premier League reverse fixture between the two sides at the Etihad Stadium come mid-April, that there could be another tie between Arsenal and Man City other than those two before the climax of the season. So that is something we ought to perhaps keep at the back of our minds. I'm sure both sides, it's the kind of event they would want to avoid unless it is a final. Unless it is a final, that's what they would rather not be a part of. But, it is what it is. A draw is a draw. It can throw you anywhere it may throw you. So for example, if you're Man City and you make it through to the finals of the FA Cup and somehow Arsenal have equally made it thus far, then there'll be no two ways about it. There will only be one way, that you go ahead and take them on, So really, that would be the case. I can see Zyro says, you remember me? Most definitely. Please like the broadcast. But it's a pleasure to have you back on this beautiful Monday evening, the 9th of March 2026. Brentford really, really pushing for that equalizer. And they will be causing lots of trouble for this West Ham side when it comes to set pieces, because they know a thing or two about that one. But Alfonso Ariola are alive to that challenge in the most recent one. So there's so many things that I'm trying to follow up on, and I'm trying to follow up on so many things in regards to tonight's broadcast. So you'll indulge me if I have, a few moments of awkward silence, really, if I may call it that. But I hope I hope it won't be that much, because now I'm trying to have my West Ham game against Brentford, have it muted, and then move on to something else. But I can hardly locate my tab, Anyways, so that's all that is going on in as far as that is concerned. So you'll indulge me. Of course, we'll go through the draws in terms of their review in their chronology, in regards to how they were conducted. But just to read them out for you, like I've told you, Manchester City have been drawn against Liverpool, and I can almost guarantee you that that's the kind of draw that either side would have wanted to avoid, but it is what it is. Now, guys, this is the kind of conspiracy theory that people are floating around, and I do not agree with it, because if it's something that was being done season in, season out, I would sort of buy into it, maybe in part. But given that's not the case, because let's not forget, I think this is the first time since 2020 that Arsenal had gone beyond the fourth round of the FA Cup. Let's not forget that. So a gentleman called Neri Buire Capo says after Southampton they'll get Leeds. How sure is he that Leeds will advance beyond the quarterfinals? There is some low-key conspiracy to have Arsenal win everything. The draws they get are strange. They're not strange. When it comes to a draw, it's a 50-50. In other words, the odds of Arsenal getting Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Port Vale, Southampton, either of West Ham or Brentford, were the equivalent of any of them booking Arsenal. Those were the odds. And for those of you that were part of the morning broadcast, when we were going through the big four that are still in the competition in Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Man City, I told you that I could almost guarantee, because I just had that sneaky feeling that at least one of those two, that two of those sides were bound to face each other, and that it was almost inevitable. So here's how the draws were. Here's how the draws were conducted. To start with, the draws started with the first team that was picked was Southampton. That's why Southampton are at home in that game. Then next, because the draws were being conducted by Joe Cole and Joe Hart. Joe Cole, a former Chelsea and West Ham player. Joe Hart, a former Man City player, also had a stint at Celtic, So really, for those that are seeking for it, now, it doesn't mean that just because a former Man City and a Chelsea player are on the panel, are conducting the draws, eliminates the conspiracy theory. But the reason as why personally I don't want to buy into it is because it's sort of a one-off. You know the saying that first time is a coincidence, second time is first time is a mistake, second time is a coincidence, third time is a pattern. So basically, people who are waxing lyrical about the same draw for Arsenal in the UEFA Champions League. The one thing they forget is how brilliant Arsenal had been in that UEFA Champions League, that they won 8 out of 8 games, that they scored the most number of goals at the league phase, I think as many as 23. They conceded the fewest number of goals, I think as few as 5 or 4, if I'm not mistaken. Really. So it was almost understandable getting the path they got into. In any case, you could say that they made their own luck, you know. So tonight, the first team that was picked was Southampton, you know, and that draw was picked by Joe Cole. Now, after Joe Cole picking that, and the next pick was by Joe Hart, who picked number 5, which was the Arsenal ball, because how these draws are made is that the balls are labeled with numbers. So teams are organized. I do not know if there's any criteria whatsoever, but they are organized from 1 to 3 up to 8 for the quarterfinals. So you pick a team. You pick a ball that represents or that corresponds with a team on the board. So if Chelsea is number 2, then if you pick ball number 2, it corresponds to Chelsea. So Joe Cole picked Chelsea, and then Joe Hart picked Port Vale. So Chelsea will be at home against Port Vale for the quarterfinal, and Arsenal will be away to the St. Mary's Stadium against Southampton. So basically, that's the draw in a nutshell. And then next to that, the next ball that was picked was number 3, which was Manchester City. Joe Cole picked the draw, and then Joe Hart was really, really rubbing his fingers into luck when he goes in to pick that. And Man City play at home against Liverpool. So Man City versus Liverpool for the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. And then the last one was a formality because it's Leeds versus whoever advances between, whoever advances between West Ham and Brentford tonight will be at home versus Leeds. So basically, that's how the draw, really went down. And for me, there's no conspiracy about that. And Joko said that Arsenal have been really a bit lucky with some of these draws when you look at their opponents. Now, it doesn't mean that their opponents are weak, but when you draw comparisons between who, let's say, Man City have booked, when you look at the UEFA Champions League, the Man City have Real Madrid and Arsenal have Bayer Leverkusen. Of course, we know that Man City have it tougher. The same way Real Madrid would make the case for themselves that they have it tougher facing Man City as opposed to perhaps maybe drawing who? Sporting Lisbon, maybe, and things like that. So it's that simple. Let's say PSG against Chelsea in the UEFA Champions League. We know that that's a more difficult draw than it is Liverpool versus Galatasaray because of the pedigree between the two teams. Never mind that Liverpool have only beaten Liverpool once. Liverpool have only beaten Galatasaray once in 6 different beatings. So basically, that's been the draw. So now, we spoke about this in the morning ahead of this draw, and I told you what the implications would be for the draw, for either Man City, for Arsenal, depending on who they draw, and the reaction from the Man City fans online are really tell you everything you need to know about this draw and how it's gone. Because first of all, they seem to be thinking, like I said, a lot of people carry this idea that there's a bit of a conspiracy about these draws. In any case, let's not forget. So how come Nobody said the same thing when last season, when Man City were drawn against Real Madrid in the playoffs. Because Man City, I think, and I stand to be corrected, had it been Man City that finished outside of the top 8, or was it Real Madrid? But regardless, they played each other and Real Madrid got the better of Man City. Then Arsenal played Real Madrid at the quarterfinals. How come nobody said, oh, you played Real Madrid, you have PSG, you know? So, okay, maybe that's a bit far-fetched if I will make that argument. But the point I'm trying to make is that when it comes to a draw, you get who you get. And you remember when Man City drew Real Madrid in the UEFA Champions League, I came here and I told you that in years gone by, Arsenal fans felt the same way. They felt the same way, over the years, especially. West Ham just missed a golden opportunity to make it a 3-1. Ball was kind of fumbled in the area there. So you remember those later years of Arsene Wenger when Arsenal could never get beyond the round of 16? They kept drawing Barcelona or Bayern Munich, or if they had not met Bayern Munich at the round of 16, at least they met in the group stages. Then the only 2 times that out of 7 times that they did not meet either Barcelona or Bayern Munich was when they drew AC Milan and when they drew AC Monaco. I think Monaco coming in about 2016 or thereabout, really. So it felt hard on Arsenal. And I remember Arsenal fans then still held similar conspiracy theories, that the odds were stacked against them. But I also add that to be the best, you must beat the best. Meanwhile, Komen Kelleher is doing wonders. He's just made 2 brilliant saves in quick succession to keep West Ham at bay. Somebody okay, let's wait and see. Again, somebody calls himself Professor Hamza Balando, but he goes by under the tag of Man City Hardcore. He says, if Man City beat Real Madrid, Liverpool versus, he says, if Man City beat Real Madrid, and he's talking about the round of 16 of the UEFA Champions League, then they will have to play Liverpool on 4th April. Then they will have to play Bayern Munich at home, both home games, by the way. He does not highlight that, even though he indicates it in his own text, that they will be up against Bayern Munich on the 7th of April. Then on the 12th, a play away to Chelsea, that's 12th April. That's a game in the Premier League. Then Bayern Munich away on the 15th of April. And then Arsenal on the 19th of April. So now, here's where it gets interesting. And on the other side, he talks about Arsenal playing away to Southampton, talks about playing away to Bordeaux Glimont, talks about Bournemouth in there and Bordeaux Glimont again. Now, the one thing, okay, it's an assumption. These are all assumptions because Man City have not yet gotten over Real Madrid. We know that last season it was Real Madrid that knocked out Man City out of the UEFA Champions League, regardless of what you may think of Real Madrid present day. Who I don't know why people think it's a given, but for me, it's not a given that Arsenal are suddenly going to go past Bayer Leverkusen. It's not a formality, guys. It's not a formality of a fixture. This Bayer Leverkusen side just recently in 2024 played a UEFA Europa League final. The last time Arsenal were in a European final was back in 2019 in Baku, Azerbaijan, when they lost to Chelsea by 4 goals to 1. So I mean, it's not a given. Arsenal can get knocked out by Bayer Leverkusen the same way everybody expects that Arsenal will knock out Bayer Leverkusen. Jordan Henderson seems to have hurt his arm while landing from a head challenge or a contested head ball. So, really, now, you see, when somebody puts it that way, with that the context, it sort of miscues I seem to remember a time, just this season, when Arsenal had to play Bayern Munich, they had to play Chelsea, they had to play Tottenham Hotspurs, and who else? They had some really, really tough run of fixtures. You know, they really had a run of tough fixtures. You know, and I remember they won all the fixtures, apart from drawing against Chelsea. You know, in that one all draw. So somebody should not trick us into thinking that Man City will suddenly be sort of having it the most difficult in terms of having a run of, let's say, tough fixtures, this season in let's say, a short spell or a month. Sometimes it can feel like fate has conspired against you, that you have all these big fixtures coming in quick succession. I need to go back in time and try and find those results. Let me hope I'll be lucky. Let me hope I'll be lucky finding those games. I need to find. Okay, yes, this was the run. Arsenal had to play Tottenham Hotspurs. Subsequent to that, they played Bayern Munich, after which they played Chelsea, and then they played Brentford, and then they played away to Aston Villa. That was one of their toughest run of fixtures. They beat Bayern Munich, they drew against Chelsea, they beat Tottenham Hotspurs, they beat Brentford, lost to Aston Villa. We know that at that point, Aston Villa were the most informed team in English football at the time. So, present day Man City, when was the last time Man City lost a game? You have to go back early in January when they lost to Man United by 2-0. I stand to be corrected if they've lost any other game other than that. Okay, they lost another game in the UEFA Champions League against Bordeaux Glimont, But the point is, Man City are on a good run. First of all, they have the team. Yes, they're a team in transition, but I do not want us to over-exaggerate the idea of Manchester City being a team in transition. Why? Because they have more than 10 players that have experience winning the Premier League title. A good number of those were part of that team as they won the UEFA Champions League back in 2023. I think Joško Vardiol was available, but Bernardo Silva was available, Rodri was the goal scorer, but Erling Haaland was available, Phil Foden was available, Nico O'Reilly was available. So really, I don't want us to sort of, yes, Man City have tough fixtures. That's a fact. But the idea that it's a conspiracy is to negate what's happened in the past. That Man City are not the first to go through this fate. If you're Real Madrid, you're thinking the same thing. If I go past Man City, have a tough game against Bayern Munich. I do not know when the El Clasico will be played in the Spanish La Liga, but not too far away. There's also that to think about. So, and the other funny thing about all this is that oftentimes the games that you may think are simpler turn out to be the most difficult. We're talking about a Man City side who, for the first time since February 2021, went away to Liverpool and won a game of football by 2-1. So they are capable. And this time around, they're going to be at the Etihad Stadium versus Liverpool. In this run of games, the challenging fixtures are double headers that are both home and away. So it's a shared advantage, if you want to think about it that way. But in the Premier League, they play Chelsea at home, so it's a formality that they have to play them away, so that's not a big issue. But you're playing Liverpool at home. Your final game against Real Madrid is at home. Now, if they advance to the quarterfinals, and let's say they have to play Bayern Munich, their last game of that tie will be away in Munich, because Bayern Munich finished second on the league standings of the UEFA Champions League, whilst Man City finished eighth. Now, is it Bayern's fault or anybody's fault that Man City finished eighth and Bayern Munich finished second, and therefore that qualifies you to have the advantage of playing the last tie at home? No. That's by tournament design. That's by tournament design, you know? So I spoke about this and I said, all these four teams, Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, Man City, would have been praying so hard to avoid each other. Why? Because of the implications for the larger context of the season. And this is what people are debating. They feel that Man City have it tough. But guess what? If you had to give the toughest task in footballing terms to an elite manager, would you rather give it to Mikel Arteta or give it to Pep Guardiola? He's arguably the best modern day manager there is. At least it's a long-held view amongst a good section of the football fan base. It's not cast in stone, because it can be a subjective debate. If somebody says, no, for me, he's not, that's a matter of opinion. But if you had to choose between who manages you through this run of fixtures, would you rather it be Mikel Arteta or Pep Guardiola? Based on experience, pedigree, and CV, it's got to be Pep Guardiola. His man, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, that's his CV. And Man City, that's his CV. What's Mikel Arteta's CV? It only has Arsenal, and it has assistant coach at Man City and Arsenal, period. When it comes to titles as manager, there's FA Cup, Community Shield ×2, and period. Chapter closed. On the other side, we can spend an entire broadcast talking about Pep Guardiola's achievements. 3 consecutive La Liga titles with Barcelona. 2009, 2010, 2011. Look at the Premier League. He's won 6 out of 9 times of asking. And he's pursuing the 7th. In the German Bundesliga, he won it thrice for the 3 years he was there. So, really, for me, the draw is what it is. In any case, all these teams going into the quarterfinal draw would have expected to get the most difficult of draws. Their hope would have been that they do not get a very difficult one, but they knew there was a chance of having a huge draw or against a tough opponent. Damilare, our friend Freshtino, says Arsenal and who? Arsenal will play Southampton. Liverpool will be away to Man City. Chelsea will be at home against Port Vale, while whoever advances tonight between Brentford and West Ham United will be at home against Leeds United. So that's the draw for the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. So, and again, DR Sport is waxing really cool about Liverpool's nightmare when it comes to fixtures. Real Madrid, a doubleheader, West Ham, Arsenal. They have to play Arsenal twice. They have Liverpool in there. They have Chelsea. Now, it's a difficult run of fixtures. That's true. I thank you so much. I hope I did not mispronounce your name, but if I did, please accept my apologies. But also do me the kind absolute honor and favor and like the broadcast. But also, if it's your first time here, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much. So, it is a difficult run of fixtures. But like I said, if I had to choose a manager to guide my team through that tough run of fixtures, it would be Man City. And Pep Guardiola said it, I think, was it today or the other day? He said that all fixtures are difficult. None of them is simple. The only thing you pray for is to have your players fit is to avoid as many injuries as you can. To avoid injuries, if you can, he says, if you can avoid injuries, then you'll have a fighting chance. And he knows it's a chance. It's not a given. Guys, go back and watch my video that we did just last week about my worries about Arsenal. Among the reasons I highlight out is fatigue and injuries. They left the FA Cup win after Mansfield with Ricardo Carafiori, a doubt with a hamstring injury, Leandro Trossard with an injury. On top of that, they've had Martin Odegaard out for some time, is now back in training, according to the photos I've seen. Kai Havertz is just returned from injury. You have Mikel Merino out through injury. Max Doman just returned from injury. And we do not know. William Saliba has missed the last two fixtures through injury. We do not know who is going to be next. So while you think about all that, the lack or not, also think about that. Man City, on the other side, have equally not been spared. They've had Joško Gvardiol out through injury, John Stones for a good chunk of it, Mateo Kovacic for the large part of the season. Brad Erling Haaland had just returned recently. Jeremy Doku had just returned. They equally are dealing with injuries, or they have dealt with them. Their hope will be that they do not get as many injuries so that they have the laxity or the luxury of doing a bit of squad rotation for for load management across the rest of the season. Damilari, you say Arsenal are automatically in the FA Cup semi-final. It may sound that simple, but for me, it's not a given. I watched Arsenal struggle away to Mansfield Town. Now, there's a number of factors for that, but it's not a given. Why? Because in my experience, you'll be surprised. Pedri is here. Let Pedri tell you who knocked out Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey this season. I think it was a small team called Albacete that Barcelona eventually knocked out at the quarterfinals by 2-1. Barcelona did not put 7 past them. No. Why? Because whereas on paper it may sound easy, but you do not know how much hype those teams get, those what you regard as smaller teams or average teams, how hyped they get to play these big fixtures. That's why it's oftentimes not an obliteration. How many times do you hear in these cup competitions that, it's 10-0? Yes, Man City beat Exeter the other time, but how many of those results do you have? Liverpool played Southampton in the EFL Cup at one stage. You remember when Hugo Ekitike scored and got a red card? Alexander Isak scored his first goal for Liverpool against Southampton. They won it by 2-1, and that game was at Anfield. So it's not as simple as it may appear on paper. Who knows, by the time you get to play that fixture on either the 4th or 5th of April, you have a whole host of injuries. And because after that, teams will be preparing, those that will have advanced to the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League will be preparing also to play in the UEFA Champions League. So there's all that, So Pedri says, you remember me, most definitely. It's been hard recently to come, but I'll make sure I'm back regularly. Good night. I'm Robert Kesakos, and I come to you live from Kampala, Uganda, where it is 36 past. Thank you so much, Pedri. Always a pleasure. You say Albacete is a 13th place in La Liga 2. Ha ha ha. We beat them 2-1. Bro, they had an energy of 20 players, not 11. Exactly. That on paper, when you draw these smaller teams, you may think, well, it's an easier fixture. But until you get to play it and get past them, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. If it were like, for example, over the weekend, Celtic were playing against Rangers in the quarterfinals of the Scottish Cup, that's a difficult fixture right from the onset. The way you have Liverpool versus Man City, that's difficult from the onset. It's brought out. Both are big teams. And we know that whoever gets through at the end of the day will have been just simply the better side in simple terms, but they're evenly matched. But usually where you have these, Barcelona versus Albacete, it's not as simple as you think. First of all, those players of those small teams come to play. Now, the other example I can give you is look at what happened between Chelsea and Wrexham over the weekend. Wrexham is a newly promoted team to the championship who are currently sixth on the championship table in the second division of English football. Chelsea are fighting for a top four finish. We are talking about the world champions having won the FIFA Club World Cup, beating the European champions in PSG by 3-0. But they needed extra time to win that game by 4-2. And even then, Wrexham had been reduced to 10 men, thanks to that, a red card that was given to George Dobson for his dangerous foul, I think in the 93rd minute of the game, for his foul against, Alejandro Garnacho. It took that, it took Chelsea extra time to beat Wrexham. But on paper, you'd say, Chelsea are up against Wrexham, Chelsea are far too strong for them. It's a given, they're going to win. It was not that simple. Pedri has just told you how they had to struggle past Albacete. Because usually, by the way, for people who have placed bets before, let me use my own example. And Pedri here, my try remind you, is completely against betting. And I'm neither for it nor against it. I'm of the view that you do what you see fit. But back in the days when I used to place bets, we did not have sufficient information about most of these teams. So, for example, when it came to cup competitions, if you saw, let's say, a top-tier division team playing maybe a team from the third division or the second division or otherwise, you'd say, that's going to be so many goals, it will be an over plus, and then there used to be what they call handicap. Nowadays, I don't know if it's still the same thing. I've taken so many years without betting, so I don't know much, but I know that, such a thing that there's over 3.5, that means the game will have 4 goals plus, or over 4.5, that kind of thing. So if you saw a fixture between Barcelona versus Albacete, you'd think to yourself, that is over 4.5, and then it ends 2-1, and you're thinking to yourself, what happened to Barcelona? Nothing happened to them. Albacete just came and gave them the competition of their lives, Like I said, these teams get super hyped for these fixtures. One, some of them play against their teams that they literally support. So, for example, over the weekend, most of those Mansfield players, as much as their fans, do support Arsenal. For example, I don't know if Pedri has that, but I've come to see it in English football, where, for example, you support a top-tier team, you may have a bit of a soft heart or some form of support, whichever minimal it could be, for another small team, because maybe it comes from a region where you grew up, and that kind of thing. So, for example, let's take an example. If, let's say, Pedri is from Barcelona, he could be supporting a third-tier division team that is within the locality of Barcelona, just because that's where he passes along their stadium as he goes to college or as he goes to school, and he has a soft heart for that kind of team. So, but when you meet those kinds of teams, it's like they want to prove a point that we are not as weak as everybody thinks, that we're not going to be a knockover, we're not going to be a walkover. So they come and give you quite the game of your life. So, whereas Arsenal are indeed the bigger team, and everybody, it is an expectation that they should be getting over or past Southampton, it's not a given. Need I remind you that in 2022, 2023, as Arsenal conceded the Premier League title to Manchester City in the run-in following the injury to William Saliba, they had 3 consecutive draws: 2-2 against West Ham, 3-3 against Southampton, and I think the other draw came against was it Bournemouth? I think so. So Southampton held Arsenal to a 3-all draw at the Emirates Stadium when Arsenal were in the run-in for a Premier League title that season. But guess what? Southampton last season got relegated. So it's not a given that once you draw these smaller teams, you're going to win. You say if Arsenal play a small team at home, they can easily beat them. But at the arena of the small team, it's just so annoying. Like their fans treat it as a World Cup final. Players play crazy, so it's so hard. Exactly. Pedri really understands it, and he sort of paints the right picture. That for as long as you're not at home, trust me, it's not easy. That there's a bit of hostility in that environment that you walk into. Do not forget stadium conditions. Like it's legit, the size of my backyard garden with dry mud. Now, again, Pedri points out the conditions of the stadium. He brings a point that I wanted to move on to next when you talk about these away fixtures. Now, of course, St. Mary's Stadium is a much more improved, stadium. But over the weekend against Mansfield, one of the reasons as why Arsenal struggled was because of the poor state of the pitch. Now, it was so poor, and guess what? It appeared that it had rained maybe the days prior or a day prior or just hours prior to the kickoff, and it was a bit muddy at the stadium itself. And at halftime, Mansfield Town turned on their sprinklers to further make the stadium more wet and muddy. When you look at the side Arsenal were scoring into in the first half, because they were playing, I think, from right to left in the first half, depending on your TV screen or your screen. When you look at the corner flags, around where the ball is placed, around that corner arc and on the outside part of the corner flag itself, it felt like how you tie a cow on a tree and then it sort of stamps the place and it's all muddy and stuff. That's how it looked like. It looked like a goalkeeper had trained in that spot for 3 hours non-stop. So the condition, every time they played that ball, you could see passes were slower. Literally, a ball struggled to move from one person to the other when they made the pass. I don't know. I use this example. If growing up you ever played football in the rain or outside on the grass when it's just rain, and you had those balls that would soak in water, that ball would become so heavy that when you smack it, you would actually feel it, that it's become heavier because it's soaked in water. So it felt like they were playing a ball that had soaked in water and had become heavy. It was dragging itself. It felt like you could never put enough power to it. And we saw also it in some of the missed chances that both teams had, but particularly for Arsenal. Max Dorman missed 2 chances where you thought he would have scored, but his shots were not powerful enough, So all those conditions play part in this, They play part in this. So it's not a given that you go away to these small teams and win just because it's a cup competition, Do not forget stadium. Okay, yes. And also the size, the size. You see these Premier League games. I've seen Arsenal struggle at Craven Cottage. I've seen them struggle at Selhurst Park because of the size of the pitch. It looks a bit compact. And like Pedri said, although not with the exactness, but literally, some of those look like some form of, a rich man is not even a rich man, but a middle class backman's yard, backman's backyard, kind of. For parents that know the importance of sport, and usually for people that come from communities that are sort of urban-based or peri-urban or suburban and things like that, usually homes do not have a whole, chunk of yard the way you have, let's say, the White House lawn. Not that I've been there, but it does look sizable from the images. But I thought those are the most relatable images that you can draw yourself onto. It's not like that. So usually, whichever family can spare a bit of maybe a quarter an acre of space for their kids to play around, that becomes the mini playground for the immediate community. So this kid, when they are on holidays or when they return from school, what they do is they call their friends to come around home, and then they'll have a kick about with the boys and enjoy to play in there. So it's often small, and if the numbers are so many, it easily gets crowded. Sometimes some pitches feel like that. Have you ever watched a game of football and think, is there more players than the required number? That the more than 22, it more or less feels like there are 24 on the pitch. Why? Because the pitch is smaller, And yet when you go to places like Camp Nou, you're 11, but you may play in that stadium and feel like you're 9 or 10 because it's just too big. You feel like you cannot occupy all the spaces. That even when you occupy the right zones, you still feel like you're leaving a whole chunk of spaces. That's why teams get obliterated at the Camp Nou. So all that is part of the context that you ought to keep in mind. But the reaction to the draws has been sort of I don't even want to say mixed. It's been one of innuendos. First of all, it's been one seeming to suggest a conspiracy theory, like I've told you. For me, it's not. And then, for a fact, for example, Mark Gahey is not eligible to play for Man City in the finals of the EFL Cup because he's cap tied, So, but yeah, let's see. I'm trying to look for more reaction. So here's Man City's next 7 fixtures across all competitions. They play Real Madrid in the UEFA Champions League midway this week. They play away to West Ham in the Premier League, then at home against Real Madrid. Then they play Arsenal at Wembley Stadium. That's the final of the EFL Cup. Then we'll return home. That will be after the international break. The first weekend after the international break, the March international break, it will be the weekend when the quarterfinals of the FA Cup will be played. So Man City will play Liverpool at home. Then they will play the subsequent weekend, I suspect, away to Chelsea in the Premier League. And then the weekend after that, they will have to play Arsenal at home. But in between playing away to Chelsea and playing at home against Arsenal, should they qualify for the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League, they will have had a fixture in between there, So that's the sort of context that I want you guys to remember or to bear in mind with this run of fixtures, So it is difficult on paper, but there's not a single team out of those that we've read out that Man City has not beaten up against. In the last space of 1 to 3 years, there's not a single team. Because maybe you would argue Arsenal, but again, if you stretch it to 3 years, you find in the run into that Premier League title for the 2022-2023, Arsenal went to the Etihad Stadium and got obliterated. You remember them getting beaten by 4 goals to 1. I think Kevin De Bruyne scored a brace in that one. John Stones scored and brought Erling Haaland, while Arsenal's consolation was scored by Rob Holding. You remember that? That's when William Saliba was out injured. So really, meanwhile, Keller has just been forced into a brilliant save, I think, by Somerville. That game is in the 56th minute of the second half as we speak between Brentford and West Ham. But the ball had taken a deflection of, I think, Coyote before going wide. You say, Pedri says, I like Espanyol, although we smack them 3 goals minimum every match. They are so cute. I treat them as my little brother. They hate me, but I love them. I want to see little bro do good in Europe. So exactly that. So that speaks to what I was talking about earlier, that usually fans of these big teams, especially from within respective countries, they have those other local smaller teams that they do support. Now, of course, Espanyol is not that small a team, but I was watching a podcast the other day by Charles Watts and James Bench of CBS Sport, and he was being asked about the same question, and he said he had a soft spot for Shrewsbury Town. I hope I pronounced that one right, and things like that. So for example, Watford is not too far away from Arsenal, so you could have an Arsenal fan who every time in their community interaction, the immediate team they interacted with was Watford. So they have a soft spot for Watford, and things like that. So it could be, and then you also know some of these smaller teams because they are admirers of certain big teams. They wear the same colors. You find a team that wears the red and white of Arsenal, you'll find a team that wears the blue of Chelsea, the red of Man United, the red of Liverpool, down in those lower division sides, and things like that. So let's not forget that, you know. So anyways, I was still looking through more reaction to the FA Cup draw, but I need to find the hashtag, and then we use the hashtag because I think it's what will help us the most in finding some of the those reactions in as far as the FA Cup is concerned. The Emirates FA Cup. uh, because I still wanted us to get more reaction from on there. But like I said, I think Chelsea have a fair draw against Port Vale. First of all, they're at home. That gives them all the advantage. Whoever goes through tonight will meet Leeds. Leeds will be away. It won't be an easy fixture. Two Premier League teams are coming up against each other. Man City up against Liverpool. That one we discussed. It's quite a difficult one. Now, let me ask. Where are the Liverpool fans in all this? Do you think Liverpool fans are out there thinking that, it's an easy draw for them? Do you feel some stadium nets are satisfying when the goal is scored? Like for me, it's Arsenal, Anfield. Theirs is short, and Real Madrid is big but firm. I really like those topics in football. The nets, it's not something that I've taken note of. The only thing I've taken note of is the color of because those of Man City are not white, as we personally accustomed to. You say I don't like the new Manchester City and Aston Villa ones. They are so big and large. It's annoying. Really? Okay. Okay. Let's see. Let's see if we can find more reaction. Come on. I need some quick reaction there for the FA Cup draws. Meanwhile, that game is still West Ham are still leading by 2-1. Both goals scored by Gerard Bowen for Brentford. Okay. People forget that Man City sliced through Newcastle to get to the quarterfinals, really, and they made it look easy. They made it look easy. That's how good they are. So, for those of you mourning about that draw, perhaps Liverpool should be worried than Man City worrying that they have a big fixture against Liverpool. Like I said, it's at home. The last time Man City and Liverpool met in the Emirates FA Cup, it was a classic. Liverpool won by 3-2 and went on to win the competition that season. Isn't that the 2022 season when Liverpool won the cup double, the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup? So, of course, Jurgen Klopp was still in charge at Man City and things like that. Today, I was walking and saw a car with the license plate MSN 2016. I started crying. Really. MSN, I mean, that combination, man. I remember it for the UEFA Champions League final 2015 when you guys are battered Juventus by 3-1. Ivan Rakitic, Luis Suarez, and I think Neymar were the goal scorers in that one. MSN versus Real Madrid is BBC. That is in Gareth Bale, Benzema, and Cristiano Ronaldo. So really interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. This one, speaking about the Man City Liverpool draw, says, I knew it. I just know they'll give us a difficult fixture to unbalance our season and hurt the schedules for the title race. I mean, when somebody says they will just give us difficult fixtures, so let me ask, who would you have rather had the difficult fixture? Man City fans. Let's be honest. I know nobody wishes it for themselves. So who would you? Again, you're going to wish it on your opponent because you know it gives you a bit of an advantage. The same way they wish it for you, and when it falls your way, you know they will give us difficult fixtures. Who is they? Now, for example, the Premier League fixtures are predetermined, so there's no excuse whatsoever about that. When it comes to the Real Madrid draw, nobody told Real Madrid to finish outside the top 8 of the UEFA Champions League. Excuse me. That was their doing, you know. That was all they're doing. Okay, let's see if there's more reaction to this. This one says he's called Ango Abu. He says Arne Slot has the perfect chance to show the world the ethical, entertaining football he's been preaching all season, and there is no better way to display it than at the Etihad Stadium, at the Etihad against Pep Guardiola's City team. Exactly, you know, he's been waxing really cool about entertaining football, a football that is, you know, that creates lots and lots of chances and things like that. Let's wait and see what he will bring to the table on that occasion. Okay. Somebody is of the view or seems to predict that Chelsea will be in the semi-finals, that Man City will be there, Arsenal will be there, and oh, West Ham really, really pressing here to try and get that. Somerville looking good. Coyote has sort of struggled in this game defensively. He gave away the penalty for his foul on Adama Traore. He had another deflection that nearly went in. Looking at this in retrospect, also, Liverpool should be the ones mourning about this draw because why? Their squad is not as good as that of Man City, in my opinion, in terms of squad depth and quality. You know, so uh so guys, tomorrow is the UEFA Champions League. It does return officially. The early kickoff is between Galatasaray against Liverpool. Then we'll have PSG versus Chelsea. We'll have Barcelona against away to Newcastle, and then the other game should be between Bayern Munich and Atlanta. We also have Atletico de Madrid versus Tottenham Hotspur. You know. Wembley awaits. So yeah, those are the UEFA Champions League finals. Sorry, games that will be coming your way tomorrow, and then on Wednesday you'll have the early kickoff between Bayer Leverkusen and Arsenal. PSG Chelsea is Wednesday. Bordeaux Glimot versus Sporting CP, Real Madrid versus Man City. All that coming your way, as well as yep, those are the fixtures. You say I'm excited to batter Newcastle 5-0. Will make the Magpies lose their wings. The first leg, when you guys met with the league phase, it wasn't that simple. You won the game by 2-1. Marcus Rashford looking good in that fixture. So let's wait and see. But indeed, Barcelona are the better side. They have all the pedigree, they have all the quality. But by the way, if you do play that high line, do remember that Newcastle are a very, very good counter-attacking team. So I don't think it will be a 5-0 obliteration. They have a little bit, okay. You would have thought would have had a little bit of motivation following their 2-1 victory against Man United in the Premier League the last time of asking, but just over the weekend they lost to Man City by 3-1 in the 50th round of the FA Cup. So really, you know, yeah, they have Anthony Gordon, Nick Voltmada, Jacob Murphy, Gomarais, Jolinton. When it comes to their counter-attacking, there's Anthony Gordon, there's Harvey Barnes, and Anthony Langa. Very, very pacey guys. William Osula, what's that? Probably comes off the bench. I do not think Nick Voltmada will start that one. In the midfield, Bruno Guimaraes has been out through injury, so they have a Sandro Tonali in there, the 25-year-old Italian international. They have a Jolinton, they have a Jacob Ramsey, they have a Joe Willock, and nothing you should worry about. But they can also be a very physical side. Avoid conceding set pieces like corner kicks and throw-ins closer to the edge of the area because they are good at set pieces. So yeah, that's the kind of opponent that Barcelona will be up against. I think we'll do more of that preview in the morning for our morning broadcast there. Oh, come on. Oh. Oh. The small teams, everybody wants a chance at or an opportunity winning a piece of silverware. And these are the kind of games that they go for. We're into the 72nd minute of the game, 73rd, and it's still 2-1 in favor of West Ham. Meanwhile, that Brentford goal was given to Igor Thiago, despite his stomach brush off, touch. Feels a bit unfair to the person that Pedri says, I've seen this recently and I completely understand it. But I've, FIFA is very surprised why no one is hyped about the World Cup. And I think it's so clear after the US actions in wars, people are scared. I mean, now, I don't know. I'm equally waiting for that World Cup sort of buzz. But I don't know if we are too focused on the domestic leagues and everything that come with the season, that we're not yet that excited about the World Cup. But I don't know. Sometimes you forget that it's even a World Cup year, you know. And for us on the side of the aisle, we're sort of living in fear that prices of gas are going to go up, that they're going to go through the roof, and who knows the price of other commodities, because most of our goods as a landlocked country come by road. So, the movement from one place to another, from production centers to distribution centers and all that kind of thing, cost of logistics or distribution is going to be high, and therefore a spike in prices. So it doesn't look pretty. It doesn't look pretty. The more that war rages on, the more difficult things are going to become. Because I've seen Bahrain have closed their I think their processing facility, because it was part of it was hit. Saudi Arabia and Qatar, I think no, Qatar, I think are the ones who paused a production. Saudi Arabia closed one of their plants. So, it's and we know that Iran has closed that passage of Hormuz, so it's not going to get any easy. I remember the days when Man City versus Liverpool were games where you cannot miss any second. Klopp versus Pep, Salah versus De Bruyne, Firmino versus Aguero, Mane versus Sterling, Virgil van Dijk versus Company, Alisson versus Ederson. Indeed, they had their moments, and now it has to be Alisson versus Donnarumma. It has to be Brad Erling Haaland versus Ekitike. It was iconic. I miss those days. Now I'm watching Gakpo versus Chucky. Like, what is this? Seriously? No offense, but Chucky is really a good player, and so is Cody Gakpo, although this season hasn't been it for him. But yeah, you do have a Lodri versus a Gravenberch. You have a Bernardo Silva versus a Dominic Soboslai, and things like that. So really, it's not all doom and gloom or doomsday. It's not all doom and gloom or doomsday. I like the aura of the names massively decreased. You say like the aura of the names are massively decreased. I miss the golden age of football, the 2018-2022. Yeah, it had its moment. It had its moment, its phase. The same way I think perhaps there is a world of football fans who miss the Barcelona of 2008 to about close on 2011 to about 2012. So every bit of that. Sometimes I think on highlights, I watch Sergio Busquets. What's that Jordi Alba at Inter Miami, and a part of me almost could not believe that you watch Luis Suarez, you watch Lionel Messi and think to yourself, this was Barcelona's elite side. These were Barcelona's elite players, and they are only here in the late evenings of their careers, playing out in the sun to retirement, really. So, yeah, I sort of hear you and understand where you're coming from completely. Come on. Won't this game come to an end? 79th minute feels like the minutes are dragging. We need to know who is advancing to the quarterfinals of the oldest English Cup competition in UK football. Let me see if I can get more of that reaction from online about Man City, about Arsenal, and things like that. But a lot of people are just simply enlisting what responsibilities Man City will have. Meanwhile, Keller has just been forced into another brilliant save by Gerard Bowen. Um, Damn. Football is funny. Can we just have a moment of praise for the way this beautiful sport brings us together, creates memories, brings joy, brings tears, brings people together, brings diversity? This is more than a sport. Indeed, football is the most popular sport in the world, and there's a reason for that. It is not without its problems, but oftentimes it does bring people together. I don't know how many times I've sat in a public place, a pub, a bar, or a lounge, and watched a game of football with strangers. Oh, there's a penalty. Brentford have just earned a penalty because Michael Kayode was apparently pushed in the box as he tried to hit the ball. Um, he caused the penalty on the other side. He's won a penalty on the side. Ah, Somerville is a culprit. Let's see. Is that not too harsh? There's definitely a push. He leans in and sort of pushes hard on him. And you can see Coyote celebrating that a penalty award because, a penalty is the equivalent of a goal, you know. But Somerville, having missed, I think, about what, two opportunities on the other side thus far, it's just brought problems. The last thing any of us would want is this game going into extra time, because if it does go into extra time, I will not, unfortunately, won't be able to hang around for that. But, you know, it's Igor Thiago that is stepped up. It's already scored, so looks like he's looking, and it's scored. It's 2-2. So, again, for all the good work that West Ham have done throughout this game, and just like that, it's all back to square. Alfonso Ariora could not keep it out. In any case, he went the right direction, but he just could not keep it out. Just could not keep it out. Oh. You say, Pooh, when the teacher tells Ateta to sit in the corner of the class, Ateta be like, Gabriel, get up, your mind man. Head it home, baby. ah. So, Pedri, do you what do you think of Barcelona's chances of winning this season's UEFA Champions League? I was listening in on a podcast, and whereas a lot of people overview that they will go as high as the semi-finals and possibly can go to the final, they're not too sure about their chances. Where do you measure Barcelona's chances when it comes to possibly winning the Premier League title this season? Oh, come on. Getting a bunch of useless notifications on here. This will be harsh if West Ham were to lose this game, because they've done really, really well in this game so far. They've had 4 shots on target compared to Brentford 6. That's far. 3 off target for both sides. I don't think West Ham have been anywhere near clinical, but Brentford have edged possession so thus far to the tune of 52%. Pedri says it's so easy, we can win it all. I think we can make it to the final easily. My expectation is semi-final minimum. If we get to the final, I'm telling you, we will win it. Hans Flick does not lose finals, 8 out of 8. Okay, so only obstacle is Arsenal. My guy, Wolves have smacked them. I mean, Wolves? No. It was a 2-2 draw, but anyways. So we can't do indeed. I don't think Barcelona would be afraid of Arsenal. I think they would respect them more than they did in years gone by. When you go back to 2008 and all those, anywhere between 2008 and around 2015 thereabouts. So yeah, I don't think they would have too much respect for them in modern day times or today. You know how Arsenal have a good record against Real Madrid. It's the same way Arsenal have a really, really good record against it's the same way Barcelona have a really, really good record against Barcelona. For example, in the UEFA Champions League, they've met 9 times. Barcelona won 6, 2 draws, and 1 victory only for the Arsenal. And that victory, you have to go back, at the Emirates Stadium, I think 2011, when they beat Arsenal. Sorry, when Arsenal beat Barcelona by 2-1 at the Emirates Stadium before losing the reverse fixture. I think, was it 4-0 or 4-1? If we play Arsenal, you will go against me, Mr. Tribe. I see how it is. I'm telling you, you'd be sad if we played each other. We will smack Arsenal. Well, it's not more about going against Barcelona. I give my objective views. I remember last season when Arsenal drew Real Madrid, I did 2 preview shows. And in one of them, I said why Real Madrid will be scared of Arsenal. I gave my reasons. And then I did the reverse of that. And I remember as soon as I put out that video, I got attacked by a football fan from Burundi saying that there is no way in the world that Arsenal would beat Real Madrid. And guess what? Arsenal beat Real Madrid home and away. So I don't know if I can try and trace those pieces of videos, but it sort of tells you how people sort of think about these things. Let me see if I can find the headlines to that. Yes, my headline was Arsenal versus Real Madrid, why Real Madrid should be scared of Arsenal. That video was watched by 1,996 people. Okay, not people, but it had at least 1,996 views with about 6 comments on there. Then I did a subsequent video saying 5 reasons why Arsenal will be scared to face off with Real Madrid at the Santiago Bernabeu. Now, of course, that one had very few views. It had only 72 views. But in that particular video regarding, where I talk about why Real Madrid will be scared of Arsenal, after highlighting my views, a lot of people were against it, saying, no way, Arsenal beat Real Madrid, and look what happened. So anything can happen in the game of football. Anything can happen. Now, the tables have turned. It's Brentford that are turning up the heat against this West Ham side. Do you know the song? Do you know the song? The song, are you coming to Madrid? They strung up a man. They said they make it 3. Strange things have happened. Here, no stranger would it be. They played it when they lose 5-0 first leg. Look, I do not think there's any team that comes in the UEFA Champions League at any one point in the season and prays that of all the opponents they get to face in their way, be Barcelona. Now, like I keep saying, because Arsenal have never won the competition, there's always that feeling that, yeah, you can always do a number of them. It won't be easy, but you can get the better of them, in that sort of feeling. If you remember last season, I think that it was at the round of 16, Arsenal were up against PSV Eindhoven. They won the first leg, I think, was it 5-1 or 6-1? They came to the Emirates Stadium and it ended in a 2-2 draw. So, but that reverse fixture can tell you sort of what you need to know. Anything is possible in football, but Pedri, perhaps do not be overly confident in Barcelona's abilities that it may make you ignore the strength of your would-be opponents. Arsenal may have its weaknesses, but trust me, they're not that weak. They have some grit in them. Jesus Christ. Mosquito is invading me, This game, I don't know, for some reason, seems to be bound for extra time. And trust me, like I said, I won't be here for extra time. How I wish West Ham could go and nick it. But anyway, even if they'll play extra time, none of them has any midweek responsibilities. So they all have to play next weekend, So they won't be in a rush. Alfonso Abioram. It's been 1 hour and 22 minutes. We're into stoppage time here. How many minutes were added? Come on. Oh, only 4 minutes. Only 4 minutes. We can't see out that one. Meanwhile, I want to say thank you so much to all our new subscribers. Pedri, I don't know if you're aware, but we're making strides in the right direction. We are at 3,758 subscribers. Good numbers. It's the watch time that you guys are sleeping on the job at. We need to improve those watch hours. We need to at least average 1,000 hours of watch time within the last 28 days, within a space of a month. But we are slightly halfway point of that. So we need to really, really improve. You say Vinicius class, Doku Daddy Doku, because Doku is better. Really, I know you hate Real Madrid that much, but Jeremy Doku is nowhere near good enough or as good as is nowhere near as good as Vinny Jr. Can't find it. Dango Ouattara. It's not have the kind of performance that you'd love to see from him. You say Alvaro Arbeloa cleans Guardiola's shoes every night. Jesus Christ. He calls him Master Pep. Pep Guardiola. By the way, what do you think? Do you think Pep Guardiola will stay at Man City for another 1 year? Or do you think he will call it quits at the end of the season and, do his thing, take a sabbatical? There's a lot of speculation that after his time in the UK or in the Premier League, he would want to explore international team football. I don't know why. If I were a manager, unless I'm in the evenings of my careers, why would I do international football? I mean, okay, and unless you're tired of this weekly pressure because it's a lot of hard work. It does still take a toll on you mentally and physically and psychologically. But I also love the adrenaline rush of it. So if you're Pep Guardiola, I don't know, I would fancy him to go and revive Italian football. I feel that Italian football, in the grand scheme of things, has sort of gone a notch down. So I'd fancy him to go in there, not at a Juventus, not at an Inter Milan. I don't know, maybe AC Milan. Unfortunately, most of those Italian teams equally do not have the resources. But I'd fancy him at an AC Roma, at a Lazio. I think it will be because he said the team will play better next season. Hence, he will coach it. He forgot I am the number one detective in the world. No, by saying that, you can't say that by way of wishing them better next season. Just for the laugh says, lucky draw for your team. I don't think there's lucky draw or fair draw. But just for the laugh. Wait, are you a Liverpool fan? Correct me if I'm wrong. Either Liverpool or Chelsea. No, I think it's Sino Bueno that is the Chelsea fan. Liverpool or Chelsea? Please correct me. Because Liverpool, yes. But I mean, Man City have beaten you home and away in the Premier League title. Do not accept to be beaten again. Meanwhile, the game between West Ham and Brentford is finished 2-2 in normal time, so it's destined for extra time. We will not stick around for extra time, but yeah, Liverpool, I mean, do not be like Newcastle. Newcastle got beat by Man City this season 4 different times. So Liverpool, please, do not join that queue to get beat 3 times in a season. Go and beat Man City in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup and, at least Arne Slot can write in his achievements of this season thus far that I beat at least Man City, You say, I will allow him to come to Real Madrid because I want actual competition. I don't like winning so easy, and I don't want Madrid to win by penalties. And he could work as an agent and make them lose. It's just about to say that I can never envision, Pep Guardiola in the Real Madrid dugout and not in a million years. They would rather have a reincarnation of Jose Mourinho. Wow, thanks for the life-changing information, just for the laugh. Anyways, guys, thank you so much just for the laugh. Thank you, Pedri. Thank you, Zairo, Damilari. Thank you so much for having been part of tonight's broadcast. Allow me wrap it up here. We'll be back tomorrow morning to do the preview for the UEFA Champions League games that will be played on Tuesday. So yeah, keep it glued on the Football Tribe UG channel, and let's do this again next time. Madrid, a team of yesteryear, really, who is Zairo, one of our, ardent followers. He's become a semi-regular suspect on here. He's supported us quite a great deal, so feel free to welcome him to the community, really. So yeah, guys, have a blessed night. Let's do this again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. For the UEFA Champions League preview and for whatever the final result may have been between West Ham and Brentford for full time or after extra time. I don't know if it will go to penalties, but it is what it is. Pedro, you say Zairo. No, the other one is Warren Zaire Emery of PSG. No, he's not the same player. But thank you so much. Have a blessed night, Pedro, and the rest of you on the broadcast. Bye-bye for now.